one of the true pioneers in the American missile and rocket story. Colonel Bain was in the Office Chief Ordnance during the early years, the pioneering years. Colonel Bain, can you tell us when you were assigned and how you happened to be assigned to that group?
Well, I was, in late 1944, I was assigned to the Developments Division in Headquarters Army Ground Forces, and was told by my superior that Colonel Fischel, who had charge of the rocket research and development branch in Ordnance, was looking for somebody to come over and take over the guided missile section, which he was just forming at that time. And I was asked if I would like that assignment, and I said I would, and that's when I got it.
Well, those had to be exciting years. You were on the frontier of a new technology.
That's really true. None of us really knew exactly what we were doing. Nobody in the world had any experience with liquid fuel rockets and guided missiles except for the Germans with their V2. Dr. Goddard in New Mexico had done a few experiments earlier, but these have been largely neglected by the American Armed Forces, and he didn't get too far with it.
I understand that you played an instrumental role in not the selection of White Sands Proving Ground, but in the selection of the cantonment area, the location of the cantonment area, that you were an early visitor to that Tularosa Basin.
Yes, that's true. Very shortly after being assigned to the Office Chief of Ordnance, probably very early, 1945, I was ordered to go to Fort Bliss, get a hold of a Jeep and a driver, and to scour the Tularosa Basin, usually south of U.S. Highway 70, and to try to find what would be the best spot for the work area, the headquarters area, and the dwelling area of what became White Sands Missile Range. There were a number of criteria, and we tried to, as much as we could, to satisfy those.
Well, I know of no one that's unhappy with the selection you made. I understand that you might have selected one closer to Oro Grande in the railhead, except the early reports you had was there was not good water in that area.
That's right. Information that we had was that the water over there, except in very limited quantity. As a matter of fact, at that time we were told that even the village of Oro Grande had to bring in the potable water in tank cars. They didn't have any that was available in the ground at that spot.
And I understand you knew our first commander, Colonel Turner, very well.
Very well indeed. He and I, although I was in Washington and he was at White Sands, I visited White Sands enough so that we became very good friends.
What did you think of his command and his selection as our first commander?
Well, as I have said once or twice before, he was sort of a diamond in the rough, I guess you'd say, but he was the kind of a man that at that time we really needed for that kind of a job, which was to establish an activity which was going to increase when other military activities at the end of the war were decreasing.
You were a frequent visitor to White Sands during the years you were in the OCO from 44 to 1950, is that correct?
That's right, yeah.
Came out, did you tell me you figured one period you'd been out 28 times?
One period of 2 years, I made 28 trips to White Sands from Washington.
And now, when you left your assignment in OCO, you came here to Albuquerque with the Atomic Energy Commission, or what was to become the Atomic Energy Commission.
Well, actually, I was still assigned to OCO in Washington, but I was stationed here to act as a liaison between contractors for guided missiles, the military contractors for guided missiles, and the nuclear contractors for the Atomic Energy Commission.
And then after that assignment, you returned to Washington for several years and then came back to your previous assignment here in Albuquerque and retired in 1958, was it?
That's right, yeah.
And you're a graduate of West Point, class of 1928.
Right.
I did remember some of those details. So what was your impression in the early days? You lived through the Juarez incident of the V-2. You mentioned that Holger Toftoy dashed in and wanted to know what was going on.
Yeah, things were fairly confused off and on. We had arranged to, bring V-2s and German scientists over. But before things really got going, they at the nuclear explosion up at Trinity site. And I was at White Sands at that time, and Colonel Turner, I slept through it. Colonel Turner told me the next morning that he had heard the explosion and seen a flash in the sky, and he had no idea what it was, but it must have been pretty big.
That's very interesting. And you or Colonel Turner didn't know until it was released to the public what had really taken place.
That's right. We had no idea.
If you had your life to live over again and was given your choice of assignments during the period of 1944 to 1950, can you think of any one assignment that would have been as thrilling and as exciting as this new technology called missiles and rockets?
Not really. I was always interested in science and technology. As a matter of fact, the branch of the Army I was in before I got into Ordnance were called gadgeteers. We were always interested in this kind of thing, and to me, this was really being out in the forefront of things that were going on.
It was the right place to be at that time.
I thought so, and I still do.
And the better part of this afternoon, talking with Colonel James Bain. I appreciate your hospitality, sir, your memories, and I envy you your experiences.
Well, thanks a lot. It's been a lot of fun for me to relive some of these things, some of which I had almost forgotten. But it was an exciting time, and hopefully nice to recall most of it.
Before we leave today, I wonder if you could take just a few minutes to tell our audience down in the southern part of New Mexico and the western part of Texas about your avocation in archaeology.
Well, after retiring from the military, I became active in archaeology, did a little digging here and there under supervision of people from the university, but became interested about 63, 4, 5 in what we call rock art, which are the petroglyphs and pictographs that the prehistoric peoples made all over the state. And my wife and I have been active for 16 or 17 years now in recording these, photographing them, mapping them, and filling out the forms that are required by the Museum of New Mexico. And also, in order to encourage other people to do the same thing, we run the rock art recording field school, and we've had it in various parts of the state in which we try to instruct the people who come to the school in the various techniques and procedures they have to do to excuse me, to properly record and inventory rock art. And we have worked for the National Park Service, the Forest Service, and this summer we will be working for the Bureau of Land Management at the Three Rivers Petroglyph Site.
And you've been putting the schools on since?
This will be the 16th annual school.
That's truly impressive. I noticed on the walls of your home a number of certificates of appreciation from the governor and other bodies for your efforts in this regard.
Well, it's always nice to be noticed. And those certificates, I appreciate them greatly. I would like to say one thing, though, because I've heard some comments occasionally about how things are getting rich doing that. very big of gasoline, film, and other things we use, we pay for ourselves. It's strictly a volunteer effort.
Well, again, I certainly enjoyed being with you. I thank you so much for your hospitality and for sharing your memories with me. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
It helps if you take
That always helps, yeah. I find that.
Since I don't have to worry about it being sequenced now. Okay, we are there. Colonel Bain, you have a photograph laying there on the table. I wonder if you could hold it up for our audience.
Yes, sir. Here we are.
And now could you describe to us who's in that photograph and when and where it was taken?
Well, the gentleman on your left, as you look at it, is Colonel Harold Turner, who was the commanding officer of White Sands Proving Ground, or White Sands Missile Range, as it's called today. And I am the one on the right. We are standing in the old blockhouse, which was the control center for our rocket firing back in those days. And Colonel Turner's explained to me the working of some of the equipment.
And when was this photograph taken?
I can't give you an exact date, but it was either late 46 or early 47.
I see. Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Now, I know I'm going to embarrass you, but there's a book I saw laying in the house earlier today, and when your wife Nan so graciously made us lunch, and I wonder if you'd pick that up and tell our audience just a little bit about it.
Well, I'm very proud of this, but the Archaeological Society of New Mexico every year puts out an annual volume of papers in honor of some archaeologist in the state who they figure has contributed something to knowledge of prehistoric man. And normally these go to a professional, but this is volume number 12 and came out just this year, a few months ago, in my honor, and it's only the fourth one of the 12 that has been dedicated to a non-professional archaeologist. All the others have been professionals, so I'm very flattered and very proud of it.
As well you should be. Is there anything inside, and I noticed in the cover it says in honor of James G. Bain, is there anything inside on you? Is there an article inside on...
Oh, about me?
Yes, about you?
Well, only a biography and there's a photograph of myself and my wife and a biography, but the papers themselves are written by friends of mine and can cover almost any archaeological subject.
Could you cover some of their names and where they're from? I found that to be very interesting.
Well, we have Stuart J. Baldwin. This is alphabetical. Stu is doing work around the Mountaineer area. He's from Canada. Ted Frisbee is from Illinois, and he's been working recently at the Zuni Pueblo. Another friend of mine who entertained us in Africa is a fellow by the name of Peter Genge in Zimbabwe. And H.C. Woodhouse. I'm a little thrown by the H.C. because everybody calls him Bert. Bert Woodhouse from South Africa, and a John Clegg from Australia, all of whom I have met as we travel around the world.
That's fascinating. And where have you traveled in the world? Could you just briefly recap some of the places you and your wife have gone in the last few years?
Well, a lot of it has been to Mexico, Guatemala, and other parts of Central America. We've gone to Europe, to the caves of Spain and France, to Scandinavia, to South America and Easter Island, to Zimbabwe, Kenya, and South Africa. In Africa, we just got back last month from 2 weeks of looking at Mayan ruins in Belize.
Super, just super.
Lots of fun.
I admire you. And you're how many years young?
Well, I look a lot older than I feel, but I just passed my 80th birthday.
Well, that's just fantastic. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.